Jews and Catholics of the Delaware Valley discuss candidly the state of Israel and Judeo-Christian relations. We'll talk to the experts about how things have changed over the years, and we'll hear some interesting views on the concept of the International Catholic Jewish Liaison Committee. All this on a special edition of Catholic Magazine.
With your window on your world, this is Catholic Magazine. Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Perello, and tonight, a special edition of Catholic Magazine as we focus solely on Catholic-Jewish relationships. This program is very timely, considering that only a few weeks ago, Pope John Paul II and Israel's Foreign Minister Shimon Peres had a cordial meeting at the Vatican, a meeting which could advance the normalization of relations between Israel and the Vatican, and a meeting, I may add, that has resulted in the Pope's accepting an invitation to visit Israel, although no date has been set. But while this meeting has captured recent headlines, you may be surprised to know that dialogues between the Catholic community and the Jewish community have been going on for years and years. In 1965, the Second Vatican Council's declaration on Catholic-Jewish relations, entitled Nostra Aetate, was issued to, quote, usher in a new era of mutual knowledge and respect, which is the fruit above all of biblical and theological studies. Just how far have Catholic-Jewish relationships come in the past 20 or 30 years? Where are they now, and where are they going? Here to discuss tonight Catholic-Jewish relationships, we have, first of all, Reverend Monsignor Joseph F. Martino, Director, Office for Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs, Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and Monsignor Martino is also the Director of Office for Renewal and Pastoral Life. Joining us also on the program, Rabbi David A. Wartman, Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Philadelphia. Rabbi Wartman is active in numerous civic, community, and professional organizations. An author and editor, he has contributed articles to local and national publications. Mr. Alan Respeler is Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Southern New Jersey. Mr. Respeler is a co-founder and co-chair of the Tri-County Interfaith Council and has been involved in interfaith dialogue for over 10 years. And also on our program tonight, the Reverend Father Joseph D. Wallace, Coordinator, Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs, the Diocese of Camden. He is also the Assistant Pastor of St. Rose of Lima in Haddon Heights, New Jersey, and a columnist for the Catholic Star Herald. Gentlemen, welcome to our program. I'll throw my first question out to all of you, and whoever wants to jump on it first, by all means, do so. How would you assess Catholic-Jewish relationships today? Monsignor, why don't we begin with you? I
think you really have to divide the question up maybe somewhat in terms of the local relations, perhaps those at the national level and those at the international level. I can speak for the five-county area that comprises the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and in that capacity I deal very often with Rabbi Wartman. I would say our relations are very cordial. They are not tension-free. There are times when we have to face some misunderstandings, but we have a strong mechanism in place in order to correspond with one another and to get something hammered out so that we're living in this continued dialogue and peaceful relationship. There are usually more, though, occasions when we work together on something. It's not a question of smoothing out differences between us, but using our joint work and strength in this local community to make statements about the plight of the Haitians, for example, about the situation in the former republics of Yugoslavia, matters like that. So at the national level, I think here in America, we also have a cordial relationship. At the international level, that's such a wide mosaic that maybe in certain areas there are continued misunderstandings. But I think, as you mentioned, the recent meeting between the Foreign Minister of Israel and the Pope was in an aura of tremendous cordiality. And I think that speaks for a lot of optimism in the future.
Rabbi Wartman.
Well, I'm tempted to just say amen. I would agree with Monsignor Martino that locally, I think we have an excellent relationship. In fact, a number of years ago, a person who sat in Monsignor Martino's chair, Sister Gloria Coleman, and the JCRC established a lay dialogue program, which is still going to this day, which sets up a formal dialogue program between Catholics and Jews, and we've recently introduced Protestants into the process as well. The international scene is something entirely different, and the relationship between the Jewish and Catholic community on the level of the Vatican and Jewish communities throughout the world and the State of Israel is one that has been up and down. And unfortunately, over the last 10, 15 years, probably more up and down than up. But that has not, I don't think, affected our local relationships or even the national relationship, because the U.S. Catholic Church has been open to dialogue with the Jewish community.
I guess that's a good question now. Can we, on the local level, continue to move forward in this dialogue, Alan, between the Jewish community and the Catholic community? Although they're on the grand scope of things may not be as far along as we would hope or we would like.
I think the issue is can. It's a question that we must. I think we don't have a choice. It shouldn't be a question of choice. I think it's a requirement to move forward and to develop dialogue. In South Jersey, we don't have the history that has developed over the years in Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia sets an excellent example for us to be following. And in the past several years in particular, I think there's been a much greater effort and interest, both from the diocese and in the Jewish community, to develop, start moving in the direction of developing that kind of dialogue. And with Father Wallace and myself having similar positions representing the Catholic and Jewish communities, we are moving along those lines.
Father, some would say that there has been much more progress in Catholic-Jewish relationships in the past 25 to 30 years than there has been in the past 2,000 years. Would you agree with that?
That is true. Since the promulgation of Nostra Aetate, really the Church has opened up dialogue, with Jewish people, which hadn't occurred for almost 2,000 years. And it really has, enhanced, I believe, our own understanding of who we are as Christians and our origins. And I believe that in our communities, it really has led to greater deal of understanding among toleration at times and goodwill.
Let's discuss the meeting of October 23rd between the Pope and Israel's Foreign Minister Shimon Peres, a meeting that, if I wonder, and Monsignor, we had discussed this before, it occurred 5 days before the anniversary of Nostra Aetate. I wonder if there was any coincidence there, or it was just one of those things where the two of them got together. Do you think, again, that this meeting and the eventual trip that the Pope will take to Israel will further advance the bettering of relationships between the Vatican and Israel? And can we perhaps see diplomatic ties established between the two?
Well, there already is what they refer to as a working commission that both countries are, both entities, I should say, are cooperating on. And though I don't want to put a time frame on this, when a working commission was set up between the old Soviet Union republics and the Vatican, it took about 2 years to work that out. So perhaps we're moving along very rapidly. It's very hard to say, though. There are a lot of complexities that are different than the complexities that existed between the Soviet Union republics and the Holy See. But I believe there's tremendous optimism here. Also, I think both sides really want to settle this issue. It's maybe something akin to a family dispute where everybody would like to settle it. It's difficult maybe to get the right circumstances. There are issues that need to be addressed, but everybody has that energy really to settle this thing. And I think that really is coming out right now. It's really encouraging.
Rabbi, are you just as optimistic that...
I'm optimistic, but for different reasons. I'm optimistic because I think that the motivation for the new turn of events is as much political as it is theological. And that given the movement, albeit slow, but the movement toward peace negotiations and discussions of the ultimate status of what things are going to look like 10, 15, 20 years from now in the Middle East, that it's important both from the Israeli perspective and from the church perspective, if I may be so bold for a moment, that relations be established between the Vatican and Israel in order for the church to have some influence or access to the decision makers who will be painting the final picture of what the Middle East is going to look like, because the Vatican very much has an interest in what happens in Jerusalem.
There are a number of misconceptions that are out there, just like with everything else. There are a number of misconceptions that Jews have about Catholics and Catholics have about Jews. For instance, how some Christians hold the entire Jewish people responsible for the death of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, and how some Jewish people fail to recognize that it is Jesus Christ, a Jew, by which the Catholic religion is built upon. And that Catholicism has its roots in Judaism, but so often we Catholics, Father, fail to realize that if it wasn't for the Jewish people and our fathers in the Jewish people, that we wouldn't be here practicing Catholics today.
That's true. In fact, due to a lot of modern scholarship, biblical scholarship and development in the theological field, there's a greater understanding now of our Jewish origins, of Jesus being a Jew, of his theology being developed around that of Pharisaic Judaism, which for so many years, the Jewish people, and especially that form of Jewish theology, so to say, is Pharisaic Judaism, was really villainized. And now there's a greater understanding that there is, a lot of, combining of the theology of Jesus with that of that first century Pharisaic.
See, that's part of the importance of Nostra Aetate in being that watershed event that allowed changes in thinking, both in theology and the kinds of teaching. The question that remains then is how quickly and how pervasive that kind of teaching can permeate down from through the seminaries to the churches and the people in the pews. That, I think, will be critical to developing and improving Catholic-Jewish relations.
That's why we were happy in the Jewish community when, as a follow-up to Nostra Aetate, 10 years later, there were a further set of instructions, and then 10 years after that, in 1985, there were a set of notes on exactly what to do with Nostra Aetate, which is sort of a motherhood and apple pie kind of statement, but then you take it and make it practical on how it gets translated into the churches and into the religious schools in order to change some of the perceptions. So hopefully the next generation of Catholics that grow up will have a different attitude, or at least a different understanding, if not a different attitude.
Let me make a pitch for the institutional aspect, and I think Rabbi Wartman is really emphasizing that. We're not talking here about a shift in feelings that can be done away with in a year or two. We're talking about the institutionalization within the Catholic Church, and I would say in partnership with the Catholic Church also in the Jewish community, of dialogue. This is not something that is given over to those with exotic interests to do. This is something the Church is committed to. The Pope frequently makes statements about interreligious work. Recently, on the anniversary of Nostra Aetate, once again decrying the rise of anti-Semitism in the New Europe, which is troubling to so many of us. I think that's the same parallel with institutional diplomatic relations between Israel and the Holy See. We already recognize each other. They obviously talk to each other, but the question is we need to institutionalize that and make that firm by mutual agreements so that, as Rabbi Wartman says, there's an entree from one side to the other into the decision-making apparatus so that the interest of the one side or the other is clearly represented.
This is a special edition of Catholic Magazine. We're discussing Catholic-Jewish relationships, and we'll have more on our program right after these messages.
The Christian is certainly called to pray with others, but he must also enter into his room to pray to the Father in secret. Indeed, according to the teaching of the Apostle Paul, he should pray without ceasing.
Jeffrey, hitting is wrong. You're bigger, you're stronger. You cool off and you don't hit. Period. Is that understood? Is it?
Well, is it? Take time out. Don't take it out on your child. A public service message from the National Committee for the Prevention of Child Abuse.
Without you.
Yeah, well, you're on your own at college.
It's not fair.
That's all right. I'm gonna get a job, start working, I'm gonna save, and I'll be in college in another year or two.
Support the United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
We welcome your comments, suggestions, and donations and encourage you to write us at Catholic Magazine, St. Charles Seminary, 1000 East Wynwood Road, Overbrook, PA, 19096, or call us during regular business hours at 668-9842.
Welcome back to Catholic Magazine. I'm Paul Perello, and a special show tonight, a discussion on Catholic and Jewish relationships. And gentlemen, I'd like to, there was a newspaper article just recently that said anti-Semitism in America has been declining steadily during the last 3 decades, but 1 in 5 people still hold strong prejudicial attitudes against Jews, according to a survey released by the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith. Father, the Catholic Church at one time was accused of being anti-Semitic because of many of the preachings and the teachings. Hopefully we've turned the corner, and that's not necessarily the case, and I'm going to ask your Jewish colleagues whether they agree or disagree.
I think there's a growing awareness of really the sinfulness of anti-Semitism. In fact, the Holy Father has called it just that, that it is sinful to be anti-Semitic, or to be prejudiced against, the Jewish people. But there is a growing awareness since Nostra Aetate of, the wrongfulness of this, and also of the need to really try and increase our dialogue, our understanding of one another, and to put that into practice, into real-life situations where we get together, and yes, we may disagree at times, but we learn how to work out our disagreements. And in a good way.
Do you agree that the anti-Semitism is declining, Alan, according to this report?
Yes, certainly it is in many ways. Unfortunately, we're seeing resurgences in Europe, and sometimes you don't need to have Jews present to have anti-Semitism, as is happening in Poland and other countries. But certainly in the United States, we're seeing a marked reduction. But we're having less of a theological. We are seeing resurgence in some of the acts of vandalism and directed at Jews, but also at other minorities. So it's not, I think, just a question of Jews. We have to look at a society and at ourselves, at what's within us that projects such feelings of hostility towards people who are different, whose religion or race is different than ours, that spurs them on to such anti-whatever feelings and actions.
If I can jump in on this discussion. The ADL is correct in the way that they measure anti-Semitism, which is to count anti-Semitic events or acts. But I think that we sit on a stage that is well set for a tremendous resurgence in anti-Semitism. The success of David Duke in Louisiana in gaining his popularity. The success of Pat Buchanan, who is an accepted active member of the Republican Party, given platform at the party convention, who has espoused very clear populist, anti-foreigner, anti-Semitic words in his history, and that the acceptance of even if they're on the periphery now, but the media attention and the acceptance of these kinds of individuals in high levels of decision-making processes, and the whole general turn of the American political scene to be inner-directed, anti-foreigner, cutting off the Haitians, as we discussed, cutting off aid to other countries, this populist movement really lends itself to what could turn into a new wave of anti-Semitism. It could also turn into a wave of anti-Catholicism, because the Catholics have not been immune
recently, all too often in the political forum, with Governor Wilder's statement, about the Catholic educational upbringing of Justice Thomas. We've seen it certainly in this campaign because of our pro-life stance, that we've been really villainized by many in the political field. So I think it's something that we can really work on together, which did occur with the incident that occurred on TV with Sinead O'Connor tearing up that photograph of the Holy Father. And I noticed that it was the Anti-Defamation condemned that action and made a statement about it. So we really can work in consonant.
We have to realize that if someone is going to be prejudicial or attack someone because they're different, we're such a pluralistic nation. Everyone is a minority. Everyone has their differences somewhere in America. No one is in the majority in every aspect. And that we have to be more than a nation of tolerance, but of acceptance, of welcoming in and appreciation for the differences that we have. That is the strength of America. Our differences strengthen us, not tear us apart.
That's why we came to this, I think both Jews and Catholics came to this area because of its religious tolerance 300 years ago. It's an area where there are, I can't say ancient, but very old settlements of Jews and Roman Catholics. We grew up side by side, and I believe that if one group or the other is attacked, as Rabbi Wartman has said, it's not going to be long before the other group is going to soon experience trouble. So we need to work together, and I think that working together is sometimes as valuable as it is sitting down to discuss our own differences, because those differences melt a little bit as we work side by side and rub shoulders and begin to recognize that we're a lot alike.
While on the international level we see some overtures being made to perhaps bridge the gap between the Jewish people and the Catholic community, and here with the four of you, Monsignor, how do we get the message down to the people that come into the synagogues, that come into the pews for Sunday church, to let them know that while we may be sort of different in our religious beliefs, we're very much similar, and we're all working more or less toward the common goal? How do we get that message out to these people?
Well, that's a catechetical crisis, and I would say my own personal belief is that the Roman Catholic Church is in a tremendous catechetical crisis because there are so many issues that a lot of our people in the pew do not understand or do not understand clearly. They get the majority of their theology, if you will, from the media, where things have to be very brief and perhaps unnuanced. And as a result, a lot of our people really do not understand the message of their faith. And as I said earlier, part of the message of our faith is that we cannot tolerate any form of anti-Semitism. Indeed, we have to promote religious dialogue. We have a new catechism coming out, and I am certain that is going to energize the efforts of the church. We already have curriculum guides in place for grammar school and high schools to teach Catholic children about the Jewishness of Jesus, Judaism in general, and the Jewish people. However, the question is how energetically are they used, how clearly are they taught? It's very hard to monitor that sometimes, but it's true in many areas of our Catholic Church.
Rabbi, how about for the Jews and for you in the synagogue? How do you filter down what we're doing here to the public, to your congregation, and hope that they all go out and perhaps want to learn a little more about Catholics in the community?
I think there are a variety of ways. Certainly within the Jewish community for many years at the confirmation level, which is high school students, have always had courses in other religions, learned about Catholicism, about Protestantism, about Islam, and so forth. And that's one way of getting to the kids. Another way is through many of the rabbis have in fact spoken of it from the pulpit in terms of needing to increase understanding and dialogue. But I think that the way that you really get things going is the kind of project that we have had in Philadelphia now for almost 15 years, which is setting up of these lay dialogue projects all over the city. We have hundreds of graduates of this program who then turn to their neighbors and the people sitting next to them in the pew or in the synagogue and talk about their experience in the dialogue project with Jews. And if that could be spread more in Philadelphia and to other communities as well, I think that that's a very effective way of getting the message out.
In the 2 minutes that we have left, I'd like to ask you, Alan, first of all, how do we leave here and leave this program today, the five of us and our viewers at home, and perhaps move the cause forward, if you will? What can we do?
I think we have to find more and more venues of having Catholics and Jews sitting down, not only in dialogue, but working on projects, on activities, concerns, in social improvement projects within the community as we work shoulder to shoulder in improving our society, whether it's dealing with the homeless or other social issues where the Catholic Church and the Jewish community have strong links, strong common beliefs in how our society should be improved. That will certainly be very helpful. And then the kinds of things that the Monsignor said, and changing for the Jewish community, certainly seeing the changes that are taking place in the Catholic world through Catholic education and in the church, that the lessons of Nostra Aetate are coming about. That would, I think, help Jews in feeling closer toward Catholics as well.
Father?
Yeah, I think that we have to present in the synagogues and in the churches, a balanced view of one another, give some kind of an understanding to the people. You can't blame the people for not understanding what they haven't been given. Some of these documents, such as Nostra Aetate for the Catholics, 2 other documents that have come out since, which present the Jewish people in a balanced light, theologically, historically, that should be somehow disseminated to our people. And I would hope that something akin to that could occur in the synagogues and yeshivas and.
Well, we've made a start here. My thanks to all 4 of you. My thanks to Reverend Monsignor Joseph F. Martino, Director of the Office for Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs, Archdiocese of Philadelphia, as well as to Rabbi David A. Wartman, Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Philadelphia, and of course to Mr. Alan Respler, Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Southern New Jersey, and Reverend Father Joseph D. Wallace, Coordinator, Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs, the Diocese of Camden. As we wrap up tonight's program, I would like to leave you with these words from Rabbi A. James Rudin. Even though we will continue to hold different theological beliefs, and even though we may differ on certain contemporary issues and questions, Nostra Aetate has freed Catholics and Jews from the tight chains of the past. We can move together to higher ground. This generation has the rare opportunity to chart the course of Catholic-Jewish relations for the next century and perhaps beyond. For Catholic Magazine, I'm Paul Perillo. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next week right here. Good night.
SEP materials for Catholic Magazine provided by Tague Lumber Incorporated, serving the Delaware Valley for over 75 years. And by John Wanamaker, fine stores in the Delaware Valley.
So many people in this world need help in so many ways, and that's what Catholic Charities is all about. Not just helping Catholics, helping everyone. All religions, all races, all nationalities. Philadelphia's Catholic Charities embraces them all. So please, support Catholic Charities, because Catholic Charities is supporting all of us. An agency of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, serving 250,000 people regardless of their faith or ability to pay.
They gave all they had and left none for themselves. But now through the Retirement Fund for Religious, you can give to those who showed us how.